All right, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the studio, or welcome to the studio for the first time if you've never been here before. It's been a busy time here. A lot of projects happening, a lot of cool things, a lot of different things, so it keeps interesting. But in the middle of all of this work, I've been making more tweaks to the live room. Now, if you've seen any of the videos from last year, you already know that I've made some significant changes and upgrades to the live room. Now that I've used it for a little while, got to figure out some of the areas that I thought I could improve a little bit more, plus making a bit of a change where I'm recording my drums most of the time. I thought it was time to go ahead and make a few more tweaks just to try to dial it in even more. Now, this really kind of started from the last Roswell Pro Audio live stream with Stu Ham and the fantabulous Chad Wackerman on drums, because we did it here in the corner. And I really liked how the drums sounded. I liked the imaging, I liked how focused it was. So I've decided to make a few more changes and kind of commit to this being the main spot that I record drums in. Because I do like how the whole room opens up, especially since I do a lot of full band tracking. Having the drums in the corner leaves me a lot of room, not only to put mics everywhere, but to have an entire band around the drummer as well, and everybody has enough space. So I kind of like that as well. We're gonna take a look at all those changes, plus have a listen to some of the initial room mics that I've been playing with over the last couple days. But before we get to that, I just released a new one-shot sample pack called Dead and Open. It's a 5-piece kit, 24-inch kick, 6.5-inch snare, 13, 16, 18 on the toms. There is a natural kind of open, hence the open version, as well as a dead kind of tubby sounding, which is the dead version. I'll put links to that down in the description. Okay, let's go have a look at the live room upgrades. First off, Delilah has even more room than she did before, so we can get crazy throwing the rubber chickens around. So the corner, the drums. New is a big Real Traps Mondo panel hanging directly above the kit, and you can see I have it placed pretty much directly above where the overhead mics are. Helps with a little bit of reflection coming back down into the kit, but it's also thick enough that it gets down into the low mid area and just cleans things up a little bit. And I dig what it's doing. I also have another panel over here on the side that I use for some, early reflection back to the kit. And I think with that, I am gonna play around with some much thinner panels there. Something that is more, first reflection only type of absorption as opposed to that. That's 4 inches thick. But so far it sounds pretty good. I'm really happy with the overall imaging of the corner and how tight it is. It doesn't sound completely dead, but it's got some air around it, but it's not roomy. So I can really have fun with the room mics and try to dial in the type of ambience that I want. So that is the corner where we're at. So the first big change, and this is massive, is the Skyline diffuser in the middle of the room. It's a 4-foot by 4-foot Skyline array that I built, and it has 3 inches of absorption behind it. So between the Skyline and the ceiling is some broadband absorption. That alone has changed how this room sounds. It has really opened up the center of the room, and then I've tried to tighten the sides up a little bit with some more panels in the ceiling, just a couple more of those Mondo panels from Real Traps. And then over here on this side, it's fun having a gimbal, I have a 1-inch panel. I do have one more of the big Mondos, but they are a pain in the ass to hang by myself, so I'm gonna roll with this for a bit and see if I dig it. Now, those Skyline diffusers all came from this wall. So if you saw the video from last year about the initial updates I did, you know that these panels, there were 2 8-foot Skyline arrays next to those absorbers. So this is one of the things I played around with. I took just the bottom panels off and tested. I put them back on, took just the top off, took them all off to see how I liked what was happening with the different room mics that I had set up, or at least my initial setup of room mics. And I decided that I actually liked having the extra absorption, but I am making some more birch panels that I can put over those spots, and they're angled. So if I want to open the room up a little bit more, get some reflection back in the room, I'll be able to put those panels on. When I'm done making all that stuff, I'll do an update video for that. And the other big area is right here above the window. This used to be 6 of the Acoustic's Skyline diffusers. When I did my very first testing about a week ago, when I was trying to figure out, okay, I identified an issue, how am I going to deal with that? That's the first thing I did, was I pulled those off. I didn't know if that was going to be the problem or not, but I just wanted to see what was going to happen to the room. And instantly, part of my problem of the splashy cymbals that I didn't like was gone. I mean, just completely gone in the room mics. I could not believe how big a difference it made. And I put them back up and took them down and recorded multiple times to make sure that's what I was hearing. So initially, I just had blank drywall all right there. And it sounded actually better. I kind of liked what was happening. Then I stuck one panel. I started with just this other Real Traps panel there. And believe it or not, one panel in the middle of that wall made a difference. But as I went through the testing for the last week, I made a few more of these birch panels. They're about 56 inches tall. And I have them hanging on chains. Let me see if I can get up there so you can see it. They're on chains, so I can actually change the angles of these, or I can make them entirely flat if I want to. And I did that initially because I liked just the flat drywall, but I've been trying to get more wood in the room because I like that reflection. And I hung them 2 or 3 different ways, and I settled on this because it actually did make a difference. Plus, I think it looks cool, and we all know that when it comes to sound, what looks cool is the best. I'm going to get some lights behind it too, and they'll look pretty bitchin'. Also in this corner, I made one more. This is another big birch panel. It's angled, and it's probably hard to tell here in the video, but this is about 10 inches out here, and it's almost 4 feet, by just shy of 4 feet tall. So that whole corner now has a big reflector panel, and it's full of insulation on the back too. So I've got some more wood angles in the room, which helped. I got the big Skyline array in the center. I have, at least for now, added more absorption because the Skyline diffusers came from these panels. And then above the kit, there is one mono trap. Now the mic setup I have going, this is kind of my initial setup that I've been rolling with. There are a couple things that I've always done, which the 4080s, the Audio Technicas. I absolutely love these mics. My favorite ribbon mics. That's kind of my close room sound. Now in front of the drums, I've been playing around more with my front of kit room mics. So these are actually facing away from the kit. Let's see if you can see their vantage point here. Looking out into the room. And it's an Audio Technica 4050 stereo mic and a pair of Roswell Pro Audio Delphos 1s. And I've been trying some different panels behind it just to try to keep some splash of the cymbals really out of the sides of the mics, and it makes quite a difference. So they're really only seeing what's out here in the room. I'm never going to set this many stereo pairs up on a session. So right now I'm just trying to figure out what mics I want to use, get an idea of what they do and how they help support the drums. Maybe I do want a pair that's going to sound like big and roomy and that I can compress the crap out of. Maybe I just want some natural ambience, or maybe I want something that just adds depth to the kit but doesn't sound roomy. I've got some Colaris out here, and although I have 2, I have one that's been facing the kit and one that's facing the wall. And this one facing the wall I've really started to like, and that's the one we're going to take a listen to in a minute. Because even though it's about, let's see, let me go here. I'm probably a good 12 or 13 feet from the kit, and it's facing away. If you just blend it in a little bit, it actually just kind of fills the kit out and gives it depth, but it doesn't necessarily sound overly roomy, which is kind of cool. And so far, that's all I've messed with room mics. I'm going to do a bunch of testing with some mono room mics because I want to get a mono set up somewhere up here that's just kind of a beef, catch the kit right in front of the kit type thing. And I'm going to play around with some mid-side as well, because that mid-side is a fantastic room miking technique for drums, but I'm gonna make it, it's so cool, I'm gonna make its own video on that because it's just a cool technique. So these are really just kind of my starting points right now, and then I'll keep developing that. I'm gonna keep tweaking some more, and I'll do some updated videos as I get down that road, but let's go have a listen to what these mics sound like. Let's start by taking a listen to just the close mics around the kit. Okay, so that is what our close mics sound like. Nice sounding kit. I really like the vibe in that corner. It's tight and focused, but it's not dead dry. And of course, it wouldn't be hard to make it dead. Just throw some carpets out there, put the gobos around, and it would be. But I'm digging that tone. So let's start with the 4050 stereo in front of the kit. And I should mention that I have that set at 127 degrees. There's a switch on the front that has 3 selectors. I think it's 127 degrees. I think the other is 90 degrees or 95. I'll double check that, put a note somewhere. And the other one is mid-side, and I'm running that one as wide as possible. Here is the Delphos. Not quite as bright as the 4050 stereo. Here is the 4080s. You can really hear the difference in the punch with those, because the first two were facing away from the drum set, and these are actually, although they're, you know, figure 8, so they're seeing the whole room, they're looking at the kit, and you can really hear a nice punch out of those. I love it. And here is the Colaris. This is the mic that's facing the wall. Some nice weight to that mic too. I actually like that one a lot. So that's all the microphones with nothing being done to them. I'm gonna loop this first 4 bars because it's easy to hear what each of these mics is doing there, and then I'll loop the tom part as well. Now I'm gonna go backwards here. The Colaris, I would probably do this. I'd probably pull this down. Here's what I like about, I'll start with nothing going, and I'm just gonna ease this in. Using just a little bit of that mic adds some, in my opinion, adds some really nice thickness and depth to the kit without sounding roomy, but just a little bit of that. Here's off again. And I'm gonna go to the tom section here real quick too, because it is actually pretty cool there. So off. That mic does a nice job, I think, of adding to the drum set, filling it out a little bit, adding some depth, but not making it sound too roomy. So let's go to the 4080 ribbons, and I'm gonna start with them off. I'm gonna do the same thing, because it's kind of loud to start with. You know, don't always need your room mics super loud, although a lot of drummers like it that way. So here's with the 4080. It's kind of a early reflection, so to speak, room sound where it adds some space around the kit, but so far not getting too overly roomy. Those mics always work by just adding some beef, and in this case, I really like the punch that I'm getting from them. Now let's move on to the Delphos. Starting to get a little bit more size out of this, and same thing, I'm gonna go back here to the toms real quick. I'm gonna mute that. Starting to sound a little bit more roomy, and there's something I really like with how these mics in particular handle the room that is going to be really obvious when I hit the compressor. And I'm going to go back to the 4080 real quick on just that tom part, because they're really cool there as well. There's just something nice about those ribbon mics, man. Oh, they are so cool. All right, 4050 stereo. Let's go back to the first parts. Here we go. Now we have an obvious width, and that's something that's really cool about that mic, having those different settings. Let's go to the tom section real quick again and just hear that. I'll start with it off. I like what both of those mics do for very different reasons. The Audio Technica is a little bit brighter, Especially the high mids are a bit more forward. The Roswell, the Delphos is rounder, it's fuller sounding, and it's a little bit smoother in the top end. So here is part 2 of this, and this is where that smoothness in the top end really comes into play. So I'm gonna go back to the Roswell, and I'm gonna play the first 2 sections where it also comes in with the ride cymbal. Now I'm gonna hit that sucker with compressor. One cool thing about that front kit room mic thing, or positioning, is cymbals are a lot easier to deal with a lot of the time because the mic isn't looking directly at the kit. So when you start hammering a mic with compression, like you hear here, you really get the kick, the snare, they still stay prominent. Yeah, the cymbals come up and you kind of hear the chaos, but it's not all of a sudden crazy cymbals. So I'm gonna blend that back in. So what I was doing with this EQ was rolling a little bit of top end off before it was hitting the compressor, just to soften that top end a little bit more. So let's solo that up real quick. Just to take a little of that extra sizzle off before it hits the compressor, just to keep the cymbals ducked even a little bit more. And I think that worked pretty well, actually. So I was happy to hear that that worked with this room setup nicely, and it makes the room sound bigger. Now the same thing, let's go to these ribbons, man, because this is just so cool. It just spanks. Those mics are just great. I mean, that's a really cool, just general rock tone, because you could actually have that kind of loud in the mix and it wouldn't take over too much. And I know I've said it multiple times, but this is my starting point. I'm trying to find a couple different, what I call like every down mics, that every session I can set up and I know I'm gonna be able to add to the kit what I need to. Still have a little bit of playing to do with these, but I'm really happy so far with how all of these are reacting. So there'll be another follow-up video with some mid-side, because we're gonna get into that. It's awesome on drums, and if I find some cool mono stuff, I'll do another video with that as well. And we'll go from there. So anyway, I hope you're all doing well. Thank you all for joining me on this video. We'll see you in the next one. Happy recording and mixing, everybody.